And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to the PEO Speedwagon podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're going to appreciate it. I believe this is episode 33, Ryan, that we're on now in season 3.
Somewhere in there.
It's usually taken off.
So like, this is an important one. Season 3, episode 33.
Oh, yeah, that's true. There's numerology.
Yeah, numerology. That's what it is.
Well, this is an extremely special episode.
It's going to be embarrassing if it's number 34, just FYI.
Well, you'd have to go back and count.
Okay. Who's going to do that?
No one. We'll be all right. We have a very special episode. We have Coach Heck, Jeff Hecklinck. Hecklinck. I'm going to start fighting you. Hecklinck. I just duffed that. Sorry about
Leave
that.
it in. Leave it in.
Yeah,
It's
actually pretty
it's
funny.
probably not. It's probably not the first.
A lot of people would.
Yeah, I was going to say it's probably not the first time.
Why do you think I go by Heck?
Mhm.
Oh, you stored it up. Yeah, that's
That would have been helpful information in the pre-production.
very true.
You walked in all confident, like you were ready to
You're
go.
going to rip it.
I think,
like you had it.
like, you know what it is? If I bring that energy, Ronnie's got it, then the guest
That's
has
right.
it. So
That's right.
you just got to keep it going.
I mean,
The thing is, if you didn't stay, only he would have known.
That's
Just kidding. And the people who care about him didn't know.
search for it.
but you didn't ask. Most people ask.
Yeah.
Say, okay, how do you
Hecklinck.
usually pronounce your last name? And it's just like it's just like it's spelled Hecklinck.
Yeah.
In fact, when I got to spell it out, I tell people it's Heck, like what the heck, Heck,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lin, and it's ski like you ski SKI.
Yeah.
So it's like you did when I said what the heck.
Yeah.
That was actually my nickname in
Yeah.
college.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's where it comes from.
There you go.
Called me what the
What?
Now, you're talking about your background here at college, so maybe we can kind of define for folks the background of you and your career a bit. So, Jeff, Coach Heck, your background kind of stretches from being a coach with Michigan and also San Diego State, also All-American quarterback in your past as well, and then of course helping with signing day sports, and you're going through sort of a large rebrand and a multi-million-dollar offering eventually with them. And now offering services like coaching with your RISE program and also speaking engagements with your Savage program as well. And so really excited to kind of dive in and hear a little bit more about those and also your background as well. But just want to say, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you making the trip from Arizona to be here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
I enjoy being a part of all these unique things that go on around the country. That's what excites me. That's what energizes me. And that's really what's built the next phase of this between the Savage speaking and the RISE coaching is to be able to get around the country, to be with unique people who do special things for people around the country and, to get involved in people's lives. And, I think that's the one thing that, we need in this world today is really more, getting involved and just getting to know everybody and understanding that, we're all building towards the same thing.
Yeah. Ryan's got a great line he says, which is in a world of high tech, people long for high touch more. And I think doing more like in-person interviews and conversations are really, really what people do long for and seek out, like this podcast. So
COVID really changed the outlook of the world. And I think it opened maybe to what you guys might have now in the business world that, we didn't even know existed in the coaching world at that time was Zoom meetings, Teams, all these different platforms that can bring people together from around the world. And it feel like you're standing and sitting in the same room together, which you're really not. And but I think the whole world realized, from teachers to how school was taught to what we did in college football and college athletics to NFL to professional athletics to, almost every profession went to that model. And now I think the world's coming back to the more in-person and more style that, it means something when you're face to face.
yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at a PEO that for a long time believed you could not conduct any part of the process virtually. And like largely even phone calls, like you needed to be in those people's offices, you need to be sitting across from them. And there was a lot of value in that, like putting, handshake and eye to eye and talking through some things that are really important. But you're right, COVID kind of fast forwarded that for a lot of organizations that would have taken a much longer time to get to where they are today.
Right.
But there is that pendulum swing. So we went for, you went some organizations who never considered it as possible, or structures like coaching and football and schools, to now it swung all the way there. And we saw that during COVID with children, like that isn't a great way to learn consistently, or it's not the only way you can do it.
Right.
So now everybody's kind of hybriding back to this new world that is a combination of both, but to be able to access these really powerful tools to do things more efficiently is really powerful.
When we found it, when we came into Signing Day Sports and we actually took over and rebuilt that business model and that brand and rebuilt the whole financial structure of that, they were completely virtual. But when you're trying to build something from the ground up, it's those instant interactions that take place throughout the course of the day that you don't put value on. But that's really what leads to your success, because those decisions that are being made in that moment, you don't have time to say, hey, can you get on the car? Can you get on the car? Can you get on the call here? Those are really the things that I think we lost that we're coming back to. I think you think of the social structure between our children. You have high school age children. Mine our last one just went to college. They take online classes and in-person classes. The funny thing is, my middle son can't take an online class, but he is very good in person. He's very good in the classroom. My younger one loves online classes. And so I think it's different for everybody, but the social aspect of how our kids are being raised, I think we're getting back to what we know as normal. That don't mean that as a bad thing. I mean that as a positive thing, because like you said, it's the human interaction that all of us need throughout the course of that. But I will tell you this, we couldn't be a publicly traded company today if we didn't have access to the virtual world. I mean, you think of the audits we do, everything we do with our lawyers, everything we're doing right now with this merger and acquisition that we're going through. I mean, we're off meetings every day with people from around the world. And that has to be that way. So is there a place for it? Yes, there's a place for everything. You just got to find the balance. And I think that's clearly what that balance is.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because now people are more accessible. Like they need to take care of themselves. They need to establish boundaries, without a doubt, because you're going to get a grind and burnout. But we saw that. I mean, Rick and I at a AI marketing services organization that we grew and were part of the sale of. And I came from that old school mentality of like how you worked in a sales environment and you booked meetings and you got in the car and you drove and you did these things, and kind of this new wave, again, forced to a degree by COVID and the remote environment, but also just kind of mindset shift where I didn't think it was possible you could just throw a meeting on somebody's calendar, say like, hey, let's meet on Tuesday. It would be this exchange where you would email it 5 or 6 times to find that perfect 30-minute window. And now the world is very different. Someone says Tuesday, be like, perfect. I threw it on there at 9:30 a.m. Let me know if that works for you. And it's not rude or insensitive or disrespectful like that paradigm that I was operating on. It's like, it's gone. It's just max efficiency and let's get the most we can get done. And that has helped companies scale and grow much quicker.
It has, and I can tell you, I rely. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I tell my business partner, or I'm telling somebody that we're talking to, hey, just send me a meeting. I'm good. Just schedule it, free my schedule, send me the meeting. And then click. And if it's not in one of my 3 calendars, then it doesn't exist. I mean, every night before I go to bed, I'm checking all 3 calendars, making sure I'm aligned with what I got to do. And then the first thing I do when I wake up is checking those 3 calendars. And so, that's, I'm relying on that aspect of it, but I still think it comes down to this aspect. It comes down to people. And how we grow people, how we build people determines the success that we all have.
I've also thought too, it's the person who's willing to do the in-person work now, because all of the benefit that's been advocated from everybody else who doesn't want to do it. They see the benefit of staying virtual. You say, well, now I see the benefit of being the only one who goes in person to visit my client, So it's just that much about it.
It does backfire though. So like when we started this company, headquartered here in St. Louis, I would impress upon Rick, like we go. If it's a St. Louis conversation, you go. But that did not mean that in St. Louis, people were still expecting to be virtual. So there was probably no less than 5 or 6 times where I was in somebody's office. They're like, "Oh, you're here?" I know they're not used to it. And I'm like, I'm looking at the invite. It's got their address, like all these things, but I'm like, that's not how it works anymore. People are conditioned for it to be virtual.
Right.
And so, lesson there is if you're going to show up, make sure they know. Like they're in there clicking for the Zoom link, trying to find it. And they're like, you're knocking on the door of their building.
Right.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. How long ago did you guys start this?
We're coming up on 2 years.
Okay.
So we functionally, my partner and I, we launched it in September of 23. Rachel, who you've met, my co-founder, and then Rick came in October, and then so now we're going to be coming up on 2 years, which has been really exciting.
So you guys are on the tail end of that post-COVID, coming back into that sense of normalcy.
Yeah,
feeling
some of that.
When all of that hit for us, we were in California, which was the last state to open itself up.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can tell you the rest of the world was operating in a different function than what we were. And we could tell them, we could sense that.
Mm-hmm.
And especially being on the college football side, when all that was going on, I was still there. We're testing once a week. We're getting off buses from road games, having to test. We're spending an extra 2 hours at the facility, 2.5 hours, taking a COVID test, doing all that. And, people are calling us saying, why are you still testing? Why are you still doing this? Why are you still doing this? Our function stayed intact for almost another 12 months after, really the rest of the country kind of opened itself back up. So, how we came out of that was a little bit different than I think how the rest of the country came out of that, which affected us.
Yeah,
it really did. It cost us at some times. And, we were behind as we came out. And I still think California is still trying to catch back up right now.
Yeah, I imagine so. Related but unrelated to it, it catches me off guard. It's like almost 2005's done. We're about to enter this very busy time of the year. So 2026 will be here, right away. But I was at the gym, and they got the TVs up and they're playing ESPN Classic or old games. Yeah. And I'm sitting there kind of looking up, and I'm like, why is that stadium so empty? And it was like a Blue Jays game or something. It was COVID. And I'm like, that's right. It took me and that feels so far away now, that even looking at, two baseball teams playing in an empty stadium with some of those stupid figurines that they put up every once in a while, to kind of just for a joke.
If you see any of the NBA games, they actually had the seats and everything were separated, because you really get like baseball's kind of hidden. Right now you got the players on the field, but you got the dugout, so baseball's kind of hidden. Football's,
everybody's out there.
We had the space. We had dots on the field that everybody had to stand on, and they were not on the field. Wow. And they were 6 feet apart.
Wow.
Which, as we learned, is 6 feet apart doesn't really mean anything.
That's right.
But we were literally, and they went around and they made sure that you were standing there, and people policing that for us, in California. But then now when you go to the NBA is more intimate because there's fewer players, smaller court, and everything's going to be open. So when you go watch those games during COVID, you really get the sense for how isolated they really made everything seem.
I bet. So that's wild. Yeah. It just caught me off guard. I'm like, oh, that's right. I forgot that happened. The world stopped. Yes.
We've come a long way in a short period of time by gaining, I don't want to necessarily say our independence, but, really our sense of normalcy back.
Yeah.
I think our kids have come through it. It was my middle son who was really more affected than my younger son. My daughter was already out. She'd been hired by the Browns at that time. So she was in Cleveland, but she moved to Cleveland and couldn't go into the office for the first 8 months. So she actually moved to Cleveland and was in an apartment and worked out of her apartment for 8 months. And they were not allowed to leave because that was right in the height of it. She got hired in June of 20. So, but I think our kids have come out of it. I'm not going to speak for yours, but I know what
they have. They were young enough that I think there's a little bit of, they've forgotten some of it to a degree. And now it's kind of this thing that they remember happening, and, kids want to be home anyway. And so, and I do remember my middle daughter so today's a big, day in St. Louis. It's the first day of school. Okay. So for a lot of the school, so did the whole thing. It's a holiday, but not for the kids. And I remember my middle child who is a freshman today in high school, which is a cool moment. She got on a Zoom, was half the day at her school, and then got off for lunch, and I was working. And then 2 hours later, I look at her, I'm like, are you supposed to be on the Zoom? She's like, I don't know. Like, so sure enough, she got like, she was absentee the second half of the day. She never got back on the Zoom, and there was no way to, I guess it was my fault. Yeah. I'm the only person at fault.
Don't worry.
Yeah. She survived.
It's always,
She survived.
It's always, that's the job.
She gets good grades. Somehow she overcame it. So no.
Exactly.
Did I hear you say your daughter's working with the Browns?
So my daughter was a college softball player.
Yeah.
So we're fortunate with my wife and I, we've raised 3 college athletes.
Yeah.
So our daughter played at Indiana University, went through a coaching change, transferred to Indiana State University, played, got her graduated in 3 years, and was the youngest female at the time, hired into an NFL personnel in 2020 with the Browns.
It's amazing.
So she has since left. She left this year at the beginning of 25. She's now the director of player engagement, coaching operations at Texas A&M football.
Wow.
So she's down there. She loves working with the players. I mean, from our background, we've been involved in football between my wife and I. And my wife's been a 40 plus year college football coach and Pro Scout.
Yeah.
My dad was a high school football coach. We've been involved in football. In fact, the last 2 years are the only 2 years that my wife has not had somebody on the sidelines in college football. So with Riley coming back, she now can say, side somebody in college football.
Yeah, I was going to ask where the passion for sports came from and coaching ultimately. That
it's always been something that, I mean, like I said, from my side of it, my dad was a high school football coach.
Yeah.
And then when we moved to Chicago, I was actually a basketball player. And basketball was my first love, but football was where I was talented. And there's a difference there between a passion, a love, and a talent. So football became a passion and a love because that's what my talent was. And then that's really what's driven me. So, I mean, I'm 51. I don't mean to sound old, but almost 4 years out of my life it has been involved in football.
Yeah. That's amazing. What was it about coaching in particular that drew you to that?
Helping others.
Yeah.
Being around and helping grow people. That's something that's been, was installed in me very young. By my family. My family is all full of coaches. My uncle was a long-time high school basketball coach. In fact, my dad's in the Indiana High School Football Hall of Fame. My uncle was in the Indiana High School Basketball Hall of Fame. My uncle was the head baseball coach in Miami, Ohio.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just we've grown up in a coaching family. Met my wife when I went to school. Her dad was actually my offensive line coach at the University of Illinois. So, I mean, just that passion to really help people, but yet be strategic.
Yeah.
And really, when you think about it, athletics bridge a lot of life. What we learn as we grow up through our athletics, failure, pressure, handling things that maybe people don't know or can understand or figure out how you handle it, how you bring it together, managing time management between school, friends, social, home, family, but yet going out there on the field and performing in a high pressure environment. All those things, are strategic.
Yeah.
And so really building people that way in strategic way is really something that, I've always been interested in. I think that kind of leads to, kind of one of the things we've talked about before, just a little bit ago was the leadership aspect of it, and how the leadership aspect fits into all of this. And really that's something that I started all the way back when I was in high school. Kind of took a little bit of a hiatus when I was at the University of Illinois, went through a coaching change, got to Western Illinois and had a group of coaches that really fostered that to me.
Yeah.
And, really fell in love with it. Coaching was the first avenue. As I learned and kind of came through this in 2022 when I was fired as the offensive coordinator at San Diego State, it wasn't the only avenue. And so signing day sports provided me an avenue to realize that I can really impact a lot of people and a lot of families around the country, not just through football. And not just through the 5, 6, 10, 12 kids that I would recruit a year or we would bring into our program a year. I could do it on a scale of hundreds to thousands. And now stepping, where I'm stepping into in terms of, the business development, one-on-one coaching and motivational speaking, really trying to magnify the amount of people that, we can affect, strategically grow, and really put on a pathway to success because of what we provide them.
Yeah. How did you come to the realization that what you've learned from coaching can map over to business? What did that process look like? Taking that and converting it.
I was on the business side of college athletics for most of my time. So I was always a position coach. So I was always on the field. That's what everybody sees. Everybody sees Saturday.
Yeah.
Okay. But Sunday through Friday, I was more on the business side of college athletics. So I was assistant head coach, a recruiting coordinator. I was always responsible for aligning budgets, creating budgets, being in strategic meetings with athletic directors, board of directors, having to defend budgets, having to defend academics, to presidents, cabinets, things like that. So I've always been involved in those areas. And in fact, I remember when I had to interview at Signing Day Sports with the board of directors, their first question to me was, why does a football coach fit into this? Other than they understood that it was a business model decision, but why then would I be an executive?
Yeah.
And I just point blank asked them, I said, please don't make the mistake of just thinking that I'm a football coach, that this is what I do. What you see on Saturday is who you think I am.
Yeah.
Because you're not the first board of directors that I've sat in front of. And in fact, I've sat in front of board of directors that have very powerful people that I've had to defend decisions and outcomes. And, just understand that I'm very comfortable in this space, not very comfortable in this world. And that's how I fit.
Yeah.
And so, as all this came together, rather than go back in and to be honest with you, all of my jobs at that time were bringing me back to the Midwest, to the East and the South, because that's where my roots are. My wife had just agreed to start. So my wife is a PhD in medical communications. She's a stage 3 colon cancer survivor. And she had just agreed to start her clinical research lab in San Diego, California. So she's a co-founder, COO there. And it really came down to, 2 of our kids were out. Our youngest, JR, had 2 years left. And the fit was really to stay in Phoenix. We could go back and forth. She could pursue her passions, which it was time for her. And this gave me an outlet to channel my passion to grow. And then we were able to get JR to a great high school football program. He's now at Mexico State playing football. And so everything's kind of aligned. And now, really it's the next phase of it. My wife's from her business, and eventually we'll bring another clinical research lab to Phoenix. And then now I'm stepping out to try and scale on a massive level to be able to impact and affect people's lives around the country. And hopefully maybe that's going to come in more, you never know.
Yeah. Yeah. And talking a little bit about what you're scaling, the Rise and Savage program.
So Savage, and everybody looks at me like Savage, yes, I get it. And actually,
You're a big wrestling fan.
I put something right now. Yes, I actually was.
I had a suspicion.
I actually grew up on that. I wanted something that, one, made people think twice. And I wanted something that reflected my passion for building people. And so as I kept coming back to specific words, and I wanted it to be one word.
Yeah.
So as I kept coming back to specific words, and then as I started to work through it, building an acronym off of that word. And it just, I just kept coming back to Savage. It just kept coming back. What are we doing? We strengthen people. We ascend. Everybody is going through something. We all have a battle inside that we're going through that nobody knows about. We have to set them. We create victories. Every day we're trying to create victories. And then from there, those victories create action. That action then, is going to be tested. It's grit that gets us through that test. Once we get through that test, that creates empowerment. Once we become empowered, now we're looking to the next step. And so that's really the process that we go through every day. And that's how Savage really became. That's how it was formed. It's not meant to be negative.
No.
It's meant to build on what are we building every day. We're strengthening and we're setting, we're creating victories, like create action. You build your grit. And then once we become empowered, we're ready to go on to the next phase. And it's building a vision. If everybody always asks, let's say, well, who are you? Tell me who you are in one word. I build business break-limits. And that's what I do. That's what I'm setting out to do. That's what the goal is. And how are we going to do it? Well, we're gonna strengthen you up. We're gonna create victories and action, power. And then now that's led into Rise coaching. So now that's led into more of the motivational speaking, has brought in now the one-on-one coaching aspect of it, the business development aspect of it, both from the athlete side and from the corporate side. So it's really been able to funnel off into two areas now, between the corporation, the corporate side, and the athlete side. And so that's where Rise coaching comes in, the one-on-one side and business development and working with teams.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. It's serendipitous. When we set this up with you, we didn't have this in play. But I mean, what you talked about, what you do on the field on Saturday, everybody sees, and there's a deep passion like at the core of that game. But that part's the game, and then there's the players, and the players are the people that you elevate and develop and kind of ascend to a degree. And it's that becomes, I think, in a lot of situations, as infectious as the game itself, because the game is a sum of people doing a similar concept. And we here have kind of, it's like serendipitously created something similar, very different space in yours, but like we're incredibly passionate about helping organizations explore and find this particular business model, and that there's the right one. There's 500 of them out there. There's ones that we work with. There's ones that we don't, but helping them find that is going to help that business move forward and prosper. But there's a whole lot of people in this industry that are really passionate about it too. And it's infectious to be around them. We get to work with, a number of them. We get to work with a number of their sales reps, these PEOs. Right. And it kind of takes me back to that time when I used to coach and lead individuals at a PEO. So we've recently here launched what we call PEO MG Pro, which is a cohort training model for PEO sales reps exclusively, because there's just so much fulfillment and excitement to be able to coach and train and develop people and have them ascend, just kind of go through all those challenges you just described, and then what it feels like to get on the other side of something incredibly challenging, but incredibly meaningful, and get to be a part of that. Yeah. So it's funny.
Well, you look at it in every aspect of life is going to provide or produce a valley that we go through. Your sales reps that you're talking about, we remember either the real good things that happen or the real bad things that happen. But the reality is most of it lies in the middle that we don't even remember, can't even think about, or can't even come back to even think through. And so what we do is bring them back to the middle, so they're constantly just working, never too high, never too low, and just constantly moving forward. The problem is when we reach those valleys, it gets harder and harder to move forward because everything is weighing on us. All the pressure's coming down on us. And, I call it, there's a mirror right ahead of us that's called background in the mirror. One of the first things you see every morning is your own reflection. And what is in those eyes is what you're promoting. And if we can learn to switch our thoughts from the negative thoughts, because that's human, to the positive thoughts of the vision that we're building, and understanding that vision hasn't even been given to us yet, because what we think we're headed towards is going to be something that is actually transpires to be something completely different on the back end. If we learn how to keep moving forward, that's where the coaching model comes in. That's really where the building of people comes in. And that's really where the 4 pillars of the Rise coaching come in, of, starting with self-leadership every morning, building to emotional toughness, because at some point every day, whether it's with our kids, whether it's with our relationship, it could be husband, wife, could be girlfriend, could be friends, whether it's for our professional work, relationships in our professional work, there's a point in time when we feel like we're going to stop. It's our emotional toughness that pushes us through that. We know we're going to get through it. And it's that's your emotional toughness that says, I'm going to get through this. I'll find a way to get through this. This isn't going to stop me. And that builds our identity, because that's really what we're all searching for. We're all searching to create our own identity. That identity now, as it begins to form, it begins to show us our vision. Now that vision becomes a purpose. Now we're purpose driven. So if we can build off those 4 things every day, then now we eliminate the huge vision that seems so far away, but we also eliminate the valleys that seem like they're holding us back. And that's really what we're striving to do.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about what was the first pillar that you mentioned there? It was self-leadership. What is self-leadership? Different than discipline in a way?
No. Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, it essentially equates back to discipline. Okay. But discipline is a piece of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And these are words, going all the way back to when I was in high school. These are words that are constantly thrown around, but nobody really follows through on, right? Accountability, discipline. Those are words that everybody says we got to be accountable. But nobody ever builds off of it. You got to be disciplined.
Yeah.
But nobody ever builds off of those words. But everybody talks about we got to be a leader. Right? Got to be a leader. Okay. But again, and I have a huge disagreement that leadership is undertaught. I disagree because I think leadership is overtaught. But I don't think the process to becoming a leader is taught. Everybody tells you got to be a leader. Your girls have heard it. I know they have.
Yeah.
But what does it mean to be a leader? Right. How do I get there? How do I do it? Are you really willing to put yourself out there? They call them quiet leaders or leaders by example. We've all said in meetings, and I know for all of your clients that are going to listen to this, you've walked into a meeting room, you have your high-level executive team or whatever they are sitting around the table, and either you as the CEO or the main person in the room, or the main person walks in and says, here's our problem, how are we going to solve it?
Yeah.
And everybody says, looks at each other. Okay. That is a of leaders by example. Okay. 2 things. 1, they either know what they're saying and they're not confident enough to say it and fear that it might be wrong. Okay. 4, they just don't know.
Sure.
At that moment, they really truly just don't know because the pressure becomes so intense. Guys, if we don't solve this, it's going to cost somebody their job. It's going to cost somebody money. It's going to affect the organization, right? Okay. And if nobody's willing to speak in that moment, then there's no leadership happening. Okay. The problem has been presented, but the leadership now has to step up to create a solution. Okay. If the leadership doesn't step up, then there is at that moment. And the CEO or the major player in the room that's presented the problem is saying, I need help.
Right.
I need help here. I need my team that I trust to bring this together to help. But now he's back to square one because it's going to fall. Nobody's willing to help. So we can't lead others until we learn to lead ourselves. Okay. The 2 things that cause that silence is confidence, right? And the ability to handle pressure in that moment. Okay, so how do we go back and create that confidence and that ability to handle that pressure? We create self-leadership. We focus on respect. We focus on building the individual. We focus on building the individual to understand that, yes, I may speak, and it may not always be right. It may not be always used. But in that moment, speaking and at least creating a pathway to a solution is better than silence. Okay, and then creating confidence. So self-leadership creates confidence. That's why we put the focus on self-leadership. It goes back to changing those thoughts. Okay. Again, in that moment, in that room, everybody in their mind, the reason they don't speak is because negative thoughts enter their head of what might happen if they do speak. Right. Okay. But what we want to do is change those thoughts to become positive thoughts, to become thoughts that move everything forward. To now, okay, if I speak, I may create a pathway that it may not be the final answer, but at least it starts the process to a solution in that moment. And now we can solve the problem and move forward. By moving forward, we may create something that's even bigger than we ever thought, rather than staying stagnant. We know that in business, if you're stagnant, you're done.
Yeah.
And we got to eliminate the stagnant process that happens through this process. So that's why we're focusing on self-leadership to begin. Once you create self-leadership, now you create the ability to become a leader of others. Because you can't be a leader of others if you're not willing to speak.
Yeah. And I feel like it creates a bit of a domino effect. I mean, if you have the confidence to start speaking and set an example for others of, hey, I've put an idea out and it was received positively but wasn't accepted, then others know I'm also have ideas of it because you created an environment.
Everything starts with one.
Yeah.
You can't, I mean, in any time frame, everything starts with one. So if the first person speaks, usually everyone else speaks.
Yeah.
And so somebody has to be willing to be that person, that leader to do that. That's why we create self-leadership. And then self-leadership turns into servant leadership. And that's the process. So that's how we get granular into that. So we take those 4 pillars of prize coaching, and then now we get more granular. So when you talk about self-leadership, the granular part of self-leadership is really forming that self-leadership model in your own mind to then cross over into servant leadership to be able to lead others, to be able to do. That's why when we focus on teams, when people bring me in and we start focusing on building teams, we're still building individuals first. You don't build a team without building the people who are part of the team. So whether it's one-on-one leadership, one-on-one coaching, or building a team, it's the same process. And it's just building, instead of building one at a time, we're building 10, 12, 15 at a time now.
Yeah. Well, when you talk about building the individual, I think one way is to take the ideas and actually apply them to training programs. I know you have your book here on it in the journal.
So we work at 3-month intervals.
Okay.
So everything's done in 3 months. So say the first one is self-leadership. We focus 3 months on self-leadership.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And then off of self-leadership, that's where the self-leadership that builds itself into servant leadership becomes granular in our day-to-day activities.
Yeah.
So and then we have every morning, a morning execution that we go through. We have obviously a daily planner that we go through, but then we have an evening execution that states just very simply starting with leadership. What's one thing that happened today that created a pressure environment for you? And what was your first thought? That's it. Okay. Most of the time as people start this, that first thought was negative. Okay. So all we do is ask, then rewrite that thought into a positive. And then on your morning execution on things that carried over, write that positive thought down that I'm carrying and so forth, because I'm going to make it a positive thought. And so that's what starts to create that self-leadership model. That it's confidence.
Yeah. It sounds almost like a carryover. You're we're replacing an affirmation almost for it to be there the next day to then be what they pull on with their stressful situation.
We're getting so granular into the minute. And that's what it's designed to do.
Yeah.
It's designed to pull you out of this great big picture, because as is anything, you guys built business, right? And I'm sure when you sat down and we first started talking about it, if we took this table as the thought board, it was probably filled.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But you had to start to erase things in order to get down to the simplistic form, what you wanted to do in order to get it off the ground. Right? Well, we got to build people that way. We got to eliminate this thought board and bring it all the way down to this type of thought. And once we do that now we can start adding pieces. These pieces aren't built in 7 days. You built this business in 7 days. You're going on 2 years, and it's probably taking you a twist and turns that you didn't even imagine, didn't even think of at that time. And if you were to go back and look at that initial thought board, it was probably so off base to where you are right now, but it created a process.
Yeah.
Right. What we want to do is create a process.
Yeah.
And now we can start small, get rid of it, and then add to. That's why we work a 3-month process. So it takes 3 months for us to be able to get a regular moment to fix or start to build one version. So we go self-leadership, and 3 months we had emotional toughness.
Yeah.
So we're still working through self-leadership, but then the next 3 months we had emotional toughness. So it's 6 months. We've established a self-leadership model on yourself and emotional toughness to yourself, that one, you can think through pressure situations and you can create the energy to push yourself through pressure situations.
Let me ask you about that, because last week, right now we're about to head in, we are heading into a very busy time, and we have more work than we've ever had, probably more than frankly we anticipated. But we're resourced for that, and we've done some things. So is that like mindset shift? Like last week was stressful. The what comes into my brain is going like, there's not enough hours in the day to get this done. There's not enough, time to do all this work. Is that mind shift kind of just going like, I'm very fortunate to have all this work to do? Is that what that looks like?
So the granular part of self-leadership is a mindset shift.
Yeah.
Okay. Growth mindset from a fixed mindset. Okay. A fixed mindset states exactly what you just
First
said.
thing. Yeah.
I have too much.
Right.
Okay.
I'm panicked because I'm stressed.
Isn't the point of your business
To have so much work.
to work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah.
I mean, that's
It is.
what it is. I build a business because one, I like that pressure.
Yeah.
Two, I like making money
Mhm.
and providing for my family and having others that are underneath me that I provide for them and their families. And three, that growth projection is what drives me. That's my challenge, right? That's my competitiveness that comes out. So we talk about self-leadership. When we talk about how self-leadership leads into servant leadership, the other granular aspect of this is the mindset shift in that moment from a growth mindset, or from a fixed mindset to a growth. A fixed mindset is exactly what you just said. Gosh, I got too much. There's not enough hours in a day. You're looking at every reason why it can't happen.
Right.
As opposed, and that's not a negative.
No,
right?
no.
Don't take that as a negative. Take that as, okay, this is where my mind first goes. That's human. Okay, that's human. Take it to a growth mindset. Man, I'm lucky.
Yeah.
We're working. Okay. So if I were to walk in to your meeting and you were to present those issues to me, the first thing I would say is everybody in this room right now should feel blessed.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you have enough work to keep you employed and to keep you moving forward to build something that could be greater than ever was imagined here. So now how do you do it? Okay, so now granularly every day, then now how do you organize it out? How do you delegate it out?
Yep.
How do you delegate it?
That's what we did.
Rachel delegate it out.
Yep.
And then how then do teams make sure that they're managing what they need to manage in order to create that growth? And so that's really what we work through on that type of process. So when people bring me in from a corporate standpoint, those are the things that we're working through.
Nice. We did it. We did Heck's program.
Yeah.
We did it. It was like, and then that emotional toughness piece of it too is interesting. I have a good moment that was inspired by my father, who's been on this podcast.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, like just that world of too many things coming together at once. And they all like landed on July 1st. I remember it's like this day it was like a sale of a house and a buying of a car and something it was like 5 or 6 things. And I was kind of, in that fixed mindset, like venting, like people tend to do. I'm like, it's just, I don't know how I'm going to get all this done. He's like, you'll get it done because you have to.
Right.
And when he said that, I was like, I guess that's true.
Right.
Like, I guess when you will do what needs to be done, that you have that capability to push through and, a wonderful support system. Although he didn't give me any advice, he just told me you'll get it done. But that is actually, in that moment, that is what I needed to hear. It's like, you'll get it all done because you have to.
Right.
And that was like that power. It powered me through to get through that, like one 24-hour period that was just oddly aligned up.
And a lot of times you don't need people to solve your issues.
Right.
A lot of times that creates a cloudiness around me that, really distracts me at times. That's where frustrations come in. That's where arguments come in. Those are things that are naturally going to happen. They're not negative, but, between a father and a son, those are, but he knows in that moment, you're going to figure it out. Now it's just how you process. It's how do you create your process then to figure it out?
Yeah.
Okay. What's, your level of importance, your time factors, what's first, what has to be done first or something else that could be pushed back, and then what's level of importance to the success of who you are or what you're building or, what your family needs. Those 3 levels really provide me with a clear pathway to need to handle that first. Okay, I'll get that off. Need to handle that. I'll get that off. Need to handle that. Oh, I can do them both at the same time. Good. I'll cross those off. hey, I may need some help here.
Yeah.
This is where I need help.
Yeah. I've drawn on a movie that I really enjoy, it's The Martian.
Yeah.
And he's like, you just solve one problem and you go to the next and you go to the
Yeah.
next and you go to the next, and all of a sudden you get to go home. He's like, when you work through all the problems.
And it's the understanding that those problems are coming.
Right.
They don't stop. I may have a break.
Mm-hmm.
I may have it where I don't have to handle anything, or maybe a weekend where things seem to be fine.
Might have to have a beer to get through the next one.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
These problems are still going to keep coming.
Yeah.
That's not a negative to me. Every time that you have a problem, that means you're moving forward.
Mm.
And the more intense the problem happens in that moment, it's probably meaning that something bigger is happening back and you don't even realize yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's changing that mindset, to view that. That's the vision that we're working towards. When we talk about building vision with identity, when we talk about identity, the more granular version that we get into is vision. We start small and build big.
Mm-hmm.
All of our visions should be small right now, because this should be a vision of what we're doing in the day.
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to accomplish? My vision today was coming here.
Yeah.
Okay. How did I want that to go? My whole fixation was, we never met.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to you on email.
Mm-hmm.
First impressions are a big thing. As we start working through this, all of those meetings throughout the course of the day, while I was also handling everything else that I had to handle in all the different meetings. But my fixation was on the small vision of making sure that this went as well as it possibly could go. And in that I was the person that, you guys, hoped you'd brought in.
Mm-hmm.
And from that standpoint, then, how we would build that off of this.
Yeah.
And so, are things that we're constantly working through.
Yeah, there's a term I've heard before. I think it's Simon Sinek calls it an infinite game. And it's basically meaning one if it's within a fixed game, like an infinite game, basically that it's not, this is a bad week, but that this is part of the overall, you will always be playing this game. You'll always be solving these problems. It never ends. There's not like a firm cutoff and you get to say, that was a really bad month. You'd be like, it's part of the process of learning to solve problems. Or remember, it seems similar to like a growth mindset. Like you're just constantly evolving and moving and solving these problems as they keep coming towards you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Everybody asks me this because I am a very positive person.
Mm-hmm.
What you see with me is what you get. And I don't change. Every day I am the exact same person from a mentality standpoint. Part of it is what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is, how I've adjusted and adapted to, where I want my life to go and everything. But, everybody will be like, how are you today? Like, God got me up. It's a good day. Because if he got me up, he's got a purpose for me. And if he's got a purpose for me, then I know that no matter what happens, he's got a way for me to get through it, and I'll figure it out. And my job is to figure it out. My job isn't necessarily solve the problem today, but my job is to figure out how I'm eventually going to reach the vision that he's created for me. And so that's all. So that's all. And that's what I'm trying to build, throughout the country. And, who knows where it grows to. But that type of mentality that then leads to the success of others, and because there's so many different avenues for people to achieve greatness. They just got to find it.
Yeah. Help me understand, what symptoms does a company or a board start to show that you would say indicate and probably need to be speaking with you in some capacity?
I would say the first thing is exactly what you and I just talked about, what you just brought up. You're feeling overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like it's just you.
Yeah.
You feel like I need to expand more voices. I need more voices to step up. I need more voices to step out. I've reached a point where I've taken it as far as I can go, and I need now to take the next step. My job then would be to come in and unlock that next step. I would say anytime where you feel like you're stuck, anytime where you feel like you're in a situation where you're surrounded by people you don't trust. And then, obviously, in any type of business, when greed starts to creep in, how do we pull that back? Because as success starts to happen, everybody then starts to push in their own direction. If we need to rein that back in, we want them to push in their own direction. but we also don't want to push outside the boundaries that then affect the organization that now either creates stagnant or failure.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of instances that I would be helpful in, or that I can help, just alleviate the problems, smooth out the issues, and then create the dialogue that takes place. I got a sales force that's sitting out there, and I'm trying to drive them, but it's not in my innate ability to drive as that type of leader. So then they bring me in to then, really bring the sales force together and build out the sales force.
Yeah.
And build out that mentality, to be able to go sell. So, there's a lot of instances, I would say if there's anybody interested, let's get on the call.
Yeah.
And let's talk through, how can I, and my first question to you is going to be, how can I serve your organization? Tell me where you're at, what you're going through, and let's figure out how I can serve your organization in the best possible manner. Because when they have success, that means I get success. And the two go hand in hand.
Coach Ed, thanks for coming on.
That's great. That's such a great place to end. That's awesome.
Thank you so much.